Yeah, buddy, you've got to be excited. Here we go. Game week has finally arrived. The 2024 college football season got started this past weekend. Exciting game between Georgia Tech and Florida State. Week one has finally arrived, and our Duke Blue Devils take the football field Friday night. A game week edition. It's a Mailbag Monday as we dive right in.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It is so great to see you here today on Monday, August 26th, 2024. I know that several schools across the state of North Carolina are beginning schools this week, if they haven't already. So happy first week of school to everybody involved. We've got game week that's happening this week as well for Duke football as they're set to take on Elon on Friday. A Mailbag Monday episode here today with our good pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast is coming your way today. We'll dive into everything going on in the world of Duke football. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Also, make sure that you leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Watch our show daily on YouTube. Like this video, share it with your friends, and most importantly, please subscribe to our YouTube channel as your support over there means a whole lot. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils and follow me there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. So without further ado, let's bring him on into today's program. There he is. Josh Cox is here with us. And my friend, game week has finally arrived. Let's go, man.
We've been waiting a long time for this, haven't we, JJ? Been talking about everything we've known to talk about in the offseason. And here it is. It is game week. Duke plays Elon this Friday night at Wallace Wade Stadium. The Devils deck makes its opening act, and then all of the new stuff going on around the campus, or around the stadium, really. And so, yeah, man, it's here. It is finally here.
A new conference season has arrived. New conference teams taking part in the ACC this season. We mentioned it with the addition of Cal and Stanford and SMU. It's not the Atlantic Coast Conference. We might as well call it the All-Coast Conference. And there they go. They go international to start the college football season by way of Ireland. We see Georgia Tech knock off number 10 Florida State to start the new year, man. Wow, the ACC's going global at this point, Josh, and what an upset.
What a crazy environment, too, man. It was really neat to see all the fans there, how loud the stadium was. And I mean, it was really, really neat. I know for those players, win or lose, that was still a really, really cool experience for them, the one they'll never forget. But yeah, Georgia Tech is legit. In our preseason predictions episode over at the Section 17 podcast, I predicted them to finish in the top 5 of the ACC this year. I believe I saw a stat. They have the number 4 most difficult schedule.
Yep.
In the country. And so very difficult there, but they're really good and they can run the football. And so that was interesting. And then, last night late, stayed up and watched a little SMU. Saturday night, watched a little SMU. Struggle with Nevada, but finally did put them away in the end there. But not the greatest of starts for SMU to the season.
No kidding. Well, we've got to dive in. We've got a Duke football start coming up on Friday. You see there the schedule scrolling across the bottom of the screen. If you're watching with us on YouTube, Friday, August 30th, people will be back inside Wallace Wade Stadium. Duke set to take on Elon. It's Mailbag Monday. You sent questions into us via email, lockedonbluedevils@gmail.com, or on X at LO_Blue Devils. First question of the day, Josh, is this. Who do you think will be the standout player on both sides of the ball in the first game? So if you were to give us a standout on offense and defense, what do you think?
On the offensive side of the football, I think I'm not going to give the easy answer, right? The easy answer is the quarterback. That always is kind of easy answer. So I will shy away from that, and I'm going to go Jordan Moore. I think Jordan Moore is going to have his way with the Elon secondary. And I believe he will have a great game. He's obviously wide receiver 1 in this offense. Each year of the last 2 years, you've seen a steady increase in his production and his value that he brings to this team. He's now a team captain along with Malik Murphy. And, I believe that you're going to see Jordan Moore involved in many different aspects. It'll be interesting to me to see how creative, that Jonathan Brewer gets in week one. I do know that there's always options, right? When you have a guy with the athletic ability of a Jordan Moore, there are many options in getting in the football other than just a traditional, pass route. And so I don't know what we'll see there, but I'll look for Jordan Moore to score, potentially multiple times and to really be your standout on offense. On defense, I'm going to go with a guy that I think is a little bit underrated on the defensive side of the football. It's because we've known him as a running back, we've known him as a safety and back and forth, but I think it's going to be Terry Moore. I really like Terry. I think this Manny Diaz defense, is going to be is going to play to some of the things that he does well. And so I look for Terry Moore now that he has a full year under his belt as a safety to take that next step. And so I'm going to go Terry Moore on the defensive end and Jordan Moore, the Moore brothers, Jordan Moore on the offensive end.
I'm known for easy, so I do want to take the easy answer, Josh. And I think we could very well see a standout game from Malik Murphy in his first game as quarterback for the Blue Devils. So much talk about him since he made the commitment. We go back to that Birmingham Bowl game against Troy when we're talking all about it and what he's going to be able to bring to the Duke football team. And against an opponent like Elon, that's the right opportunity. Yes, people are then going to say, well, it's Elon. You were supposed to do that. But it's much better to have that conversation than, oh, my goodness, Malik Murphy really kind of struggled a little bit against an FCS opponent in Elon. I don't think that's the case. I think we're bound to have a big-time game from Malik Murphy at the quarterback position. So really excited to see what he's going to be able to do there. And then defensively, let me go into secondary too. Chandler Rivers, man, setting the tone, his energy. He's always kind of hyping his teammates up and that sort of thing. I think we're going to have a big Chandler Rivers kind of standout game. Speaking of defense, the next question wrote into us, Josh, was what will be the main focus on defense with it being the first game of the season?
Yeah, so with it being Elon, understanding the level of the opponent, you never want to take an opponent for granted. You definitely don't want to do that. But you also understand this is week one and not week, 11. And so, I think that the coaching staff has got to be understanding, and they are, of like, okay, this is the first time in the system, first time with us calling these schemes and plays. But I do think the one thing we're going to see is disruption. I know that Coach Diaz and Coach Patke are both philosophy is tackles for loss, getting in the backfield, really pushing people back into their second and long, third and long situations. And so, I think we're going to see some quarterback sacks. I think we're going to see some hurries. I think we're going to see some tackles for loss. And so that's what I believe we'll see on the defensive side of the football. Coach Diaz and Coach Patke were 1-2 in the country last year in tackles for loss at UTSA and Penn State. And so I think you're going to definitely see that. So then, with that being said, we both went secondary, but with that being said, this might be like a Wes Williams, Ryan Smith, VJ Anthony coming out party. You know what I mean? It could be that as well. So.
Yeah, I think the focus, disruption. I like that word that you use there. Like, make that kind of your big focus, getting into it, getting used to playing in a new system, and making big plays before the competition does get a little bit more difficult as the season continues to move forward. Make those big time plays, be disruptive. I think that'll lead to a very successful opening game for Duke.
And on that defensive note, just in the times that we've been at practice and whatnot, I think it's going to be interesting this year. So Coach Diaz's defense is not committed to the 4-2-5. And they're also not committed to the 4-3. So I think depending on scenarios and depending on our opponent and depending on, maybe for us later on in the season, our injuries and where we're at in a 2-deep, I think it's going to be interesting to kind of keep an eye on that. Like how many times we run out the third linebacker or how many times we run out the fifth member of the secondary. And so that's going to be a fun thing because, let's face it, for the entirety of the Cutcliffe era and then for the 2 years under Mike Elko, it was pretty solidly a 4-2-5. And so this is the first time where we may see that third linebacker, more often than not. And so just something for Duke fans to keep their eye on.
All right, playing a team like Elon, a lot of people want to know, when can you expect to see the backups enter the game? What does the offense look like compared to the defense? Who's more dominant and all of those things? Those are some questions that we've got coming up on this Mailbag Monday episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today, brought to you by one of our new sponsors here. Hey, Locked On Blue Devils fans, I want to take you a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do. It's Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of the Duke Blue Devils? You've got that job instead of Manny Diaz. From recruiting players and hiring your coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free and has no ads. It's 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Blue Devils fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB in all capitals inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure you take advantage of this perk, as it will go and get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Let's keep rolling here on Locked On Blue Devils today. I'm JJ Jackson. He's Josh Cox. We're getting set for week 1 of this Duke football season. You've got the Section 17 podcast. Friday night, people are going to be inside Wallace Wade Stadium. If they're walking along the concourse, they might see Section 17, Josh. And that's where this whole thing got started, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have Devil's Deck tickets for the first game, you will be an honorary member of Section 17, because a good portion of that Devil's Deck is a good portion of Section 17. And so we started there, sitting there many, many years ago. And so I think the plan is, at least for this first game, is to continue to be in 17. It's just going to be down further in front of the Devil's Deck. And so we'll see how that goes. We may adjust. We may be telling people that we're going to be over in 20 or something come the next home game, but we'll see. But man, really excited about those updates. I know that's not what this podcast is about, but really excited about those in-stadium upgrades. Rachel Demita doing the hosting inside the stadium. As I'm 42 years old, I'm sure you youngsters in your 20s know about her a little bit more than I would. But that's really cool. They have 2 other sections inside of the stadium that they're making a little more social areas, plus the Devil's Deck, plus the DJ booth. Like, there's just a lot going on. So here's what I got to tell you. If you're local, and what I mean by local is within like a 2-hour driving distance of Durham, and you're not going out of town for Labor Day weekend, why not? Pick the family up, bring them to Wallace Wade, enjoy some football. Duke's going to beat Elon. You'll get to see Malik Murphy.
Yeah,
everybody's hyped. So it's the weekend to be there.
I'm starting to laugh thinking about the fact, Josh, that you're going to turn into the ACC. You're going to turn into the Big 12 or the Big 10, right? There aren't 10 teams in the Big 10. There aren't 12 in the Big 12, and
right.
The ACC is not the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Nope.
You're not Section 17 when you're in Section 20, my friend.
I know. We just keep expanding. What can we say? So what we said was we will never rebrand. We're going to keep it always Section 17. If it completely goes away, it's just going to be vintage. You just got to know. It's a story to be told, right? It's a story to be told.
That's perfect.
So.
All right. Well, let's keep going with our mailbag episode here today. Mailbag Monday of Locked On Blue Devils. When will the backups be able to enter the game against Elon?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is obviously Manny Diaz's first, game as the Duke football head coach. And so that's going to be a head coaching philosophy, I feel like, that he is obviously pushed down to his coordinators and whoever is in charge of, those 2 deeps. That's the first thing, is we ought to see a 2 deep released some point in time, this week. It may actually have been released by the time this comes out. I have no idea. But there'll be a 2 deep some point in time. Ideally, I'm a big proponent of, if you're really up, I'd love to see the third quarter turn into the time where they're able to
Yep.
start that. I think maybe a more logical answer would be fourth quarter. It'd be nice if you were able to see beyond the 2 deep for the fourth quarter. So if that means it starts in the third quarter or it doesn't start in the fourth quarter, that's what I think. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of we got up 3 scores in the first half and we took the foot off the gas. I'm not a big fan of that. This is big time football, man. Like we don't need to take the foot off the gas, until the second half at the earliest. Yeah. So, and I'm not like necessarily in the Steve Spurrier school of we're gonna beat you 63-0 per se. But once again, we're also not going to put guys out there on the football field and not tell them to go 110%. So I'm all for that. But it'll be interesting to see what Manny's philosophy is on that. But I would definitely, I'm pretty sure you're going to see in the beginning of the fourth quarter you'll be into that past the 2 deep significantly.
All right, more questions here. Locked On Blue Devils, a Mailbag Monday. I agree. I think hopefully in the second half we're able to start seeing those backups enter the game against Elon. Want to run it up.
And just remember, this is not a new rule anymore, but true freshmen can play 4 games.
Yep.
And still be redshirted. And so this is, once
one
again,
of those good opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, because with every individual player that Duke has coming in as true freshmen, they have a plan for that player. And it's sometimes a 4-year plan, it's sometimes a 5-year plan. So those players that have a 5-year plan, then what they do is they take this first year that'll be redshirt and they figure out what games, they think they're going to be able to be utilized in. And so this could be a game for a true freshman in the fourth quarter that you see get in that maybe you don't see, many more times the rest of the year.
Next question. Do you expect the offense or the defense to dominate more against Elon?
Man, that is actually a really good question. So here's let me take you through my head. Right,
I'm leaning defense, Josh.
I would lean defense strictly because it's Manny Diaz, right? So not only is it Manny Diaz, but this team also was coached by Mike Elko for the last 2 years. So your players that were left from Mike Elko were defensive players, defensive-minded head coach. Bring in Coach Diaz, a little bit of a different shift in scheme, perhaps, obviously in terminology, but still you have a defensive-minded head coach. So I think I would lean toward the defense. Now, there's going to be a talent gap. Let's face it, right? Duke is going to be the more talented team with a Jonathan Brewer type offense that wants to really speed it up and go. You really could see Duke's athletes on the outside out-athlete everybody, and you could see a ton of points scored by the offense. And so that one will be interesting to say the least. But I'm with you, JJ. I'll go with that. Jonathan Patkey on the defensive side of the football. I believe they're going to impress us the most. Now, will they get a shutout or anything? Not sure about that, but they're going to be impressive.
Yeah, big-time performance coming from the defense, I believe. And I think the same about Malik Murphy and what the offense will be able to do. I just think the defense is going to be more dominant in regards to the game against Elon. All right, we've got one more timeout coming up, and then I want to talk a little bit about the big-time recruiting news that took place over the weekend, as well as it's opening week. What are some of the memories that you may have, Duke fans? Let us know in the comments down below as we continue to move forward here on this episode of Locked On Blue Devils. New season has arrived, as has a new sponsor here for Locked On Blue Devils. We're talking about our friends at 5 Hour Energy. It's the brand hardworking people like you and I have trusted for over 20 years to give them the alert, energized feeling they need to get through a busy, hectic day. You always know where to find 5 Hour Energy shots right at the cash register at nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. Stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. That is remarkable. So right now, go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com and get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is valid only until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So go ahead and go to 5hourenergy.com today. 5 Hour Energy, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Back on the program here today, JJ Jackson alongside Josh Cox. We do love our new sponsor, 5 Hour Energy, but Josh and the Section 17 podcast are good to go in the energy department. Tell people about the work and how they can support you guys, Josh.
Yeah, I definitely will. A quick 5 hour energy plug. It actually works the opposite on me. Like
okay.
the couple times I've taken 5 Hour Energy, I've like knocked out, man. It was incredible. Like everybody was cracking up. I'm like, man, I'm dead. But it works on everyone else. So anyway, I'm the odd guy. But Section 17, yeah. So we're in full season mode now. Every week we release a podcast, typically on Tuesday mornings. Sometimes our producer gets it out on Monday night really late, but gets out on Tuesday mornings. We cover Duke football in depth. We have a lot of fun, man. We have 4 different personalities on there for sure. We have fun with each other, but then we do try to bring you relevant information. And so if you're wanting to learn more about football, we have a YouTube channel. You can search Section 17 Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. We just hit, I believe, 74 reviews on there, which was really cool. And so if you listen as you would here on Locked On, also there, rate and reviews, Spotify. And then we have a Facebook group, Twitter, Instagram. I think we have a TikTok. I'm outside of the TikTok world, but I think we have a TikTok. I don't know how much it gets updated because we have a social media guy that does that. But anyway, yeah, so hit us up if you guys have any questions, or especially if you're coming to a game. We tailgate typically before every home game. We're going to be at some of the away games this year, tailgating and having a good time. So we try to be your one-stop shop for Duke football.
Go check it all out and support them again at Duke FB Talk on X, and he's on X at Joshua Cox. 2 more questions left to go. Mailbag Monday, Josh. We'll talk about some early season memories from the Blue Devils over the last few years. But big news over the weekend as Duke got a big-time flip in the commitment department. A player committed to Clemson has now flipped over to the Blue Devils, a top 75 recruit in the entire class of 2025 by way of Grimsley High School in Greensboro, North Carolina. Bryce Davis is the newest member of kind of the Duke football commits. How big is this?
It's massive. He's the number 4 player in the state, if I'm not mistaken. Highly sought after. He was down to South Carolina, Georgia, Clemson, and Duke. And then the day before he initially committed to Clemson, 24/7 folks and others were and we're saying, hey, it's really between Duke and Clemson. In fact, one of the regional 24/7 recruiting analysts, she flipped her crystal ball to Duke the day of his commitment, but he ended up initially going with Clemson. I will tell you this from all that I have heard, and obviously staying appropriate here, Duke was never out of it. Duke was never out of it, and so there are some things behind the scenes there. There's family. It was a known thing that his parents really wanted him at Duke. They are local people. And so, I believe that ended up being the thing. I believe Duke has a lot to offer. Just on the practical side, you could come to Duke and this, JJ, that Bryce Davis is going to come in, make an immediate impact. He's going to be an immediate leader. And not that he would not be able to be that at Clemson, but there's a lot more to go through, right, to become that at Clemson. And so, obviously the academic side at Duke is high standards academically. You leave Duke with an undergrad degree in whatever field he decides, to pursue, and football is only going to last, at best, maybe 10 years after you graduate college. And then, as Duke says, it's a 40-year decision. You got 30 more years to figure out what you're going to do. And having that Duke degree will get you places. And so I think at the end of the day, that all did it. Duke is competitive in the NIL space with those guys as well. And so I think, that ultimately brought him to Duke. And it's important. It's important to get an in-state recruit
Yep.
And then it's important to know that you went up against 2 SEC teams and the class of the ACC, and you wound up landing a guy.
Yep, top 75 player in the entire country, Bryce Davis, Grimsley High School, Greensboro, North Carolina, 6'3", 245, committed to Clemson on July 20th. So only was committed to Clemson for a little over a month and then flips it over to Duke, where he will go play college football for the Blue Devils. Great stuff there. Massive get for Manny Diaz, and hopefully they can continue to build off that recruiting momentum. One question, the last one to go. It is opening week of the college football season. This was a fun one that my family actually sent over to me for us to kind of spitball and think about here today, Josh. Let's go to the turn of the new century. Let's go back since 2000. What are some of those Duke football memories of a start to the season that stand out to you or that you remember fondly?
All right, I'm going to give you 3 of them.
Okay.
That's fair?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to give you 3. There are probably more, but I thought about like what came to my mind. Okay, first thing that came to my mind is sort of through 2000 to 2007, nothing came to my mind. Those were the 0-11, 1-10, 2-9 years. Nothing, literally nothing came to my mind. The first one that came to my mind was the first year under David Cutcliffe. That was 2008. Duke beat James Madison. And we now know JMU, has built a good program. They've now, leveled up and whatnot. But in David Cutcliffe's first game, Duke beats James Madison 31-7. And so, that got Duke off to a good start in that era. Now, we like to romanticize the past. It took Coach Cutcliffe a few years to get the program where he wanted it, right? And so it wasn't instant success. But the first game was. And so I remember that game.
You always remember your first, man.
Yeah. That's what they say. That's what they say. And for sure. So James Madison was David Cutcliffe. So I'm sure he'll never forget her. But anyway, all right.
Number two.
Number two. Ironically, another first.
Okay.
Mike Elko's first game.
Yep.
Duke was playing Temple. No one knew. I mean, the summer before this game, our podcast had Nina King, athletic director at Duke, on our podcast. She warned Duke fans, like, do not expect like something crazy. Like, this is going to take some time. Coach Elko's going to have to get, blah, 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 fill in the blank, which was all the right thing to say. But then Duke goes out in the Temple game and pitches a shutout. The Mike Elko defense doesn't let Temple on the board. And it was a 30-0 win there at the beginning of the Mike Elko era. And so that's the other one that stood out to me. It was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, we didn't lose a lot of guys in the coaching, transfer. And we've got some good talent on this team. And Riley Leonard was good in his first game, as a starting quarterback for Duke. So that game stands out to me. And then, how could I not? 1 year ago, the beginning of the 2023 football season, Duke is playing the Clemson Tigers. Now, granted, we found out later on in the season, Clemson was not Clemson of the kind of Clemson they have been in the past. But we didn't know that leading into week 1. They had really talked up Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik had come off a really good end of the season previous year. They had benched DJU, all that stuff. And so this was going to be the year. And Duke did not just beat Clemson. They beat them down 28-7. That stadium was electric. And that started what could have been one of the most special seasons in Duke football history. We won't talk about the injury in the 4th and 16 and all that, but that could have started something really special. And it did. I mean, at the end of the day, you'll never take away that field rush, the ESPN. The other thing that was crazy about JJ was that it was the Monday night of Labor Day. It was the only game on TV that night. And so there were a lot of eyes on it. And so a major, major beginning to the season. Those are the 3 that stand out to me.
I would certainly the Clemson is kind of what came to mind for me this past season, just because of how epic that was to start the year. And just, you remember it so fondly, of course, with College game day being involved, or in the future they would be. It's a Labor Day Monday to kick off the season, and Duke is this primetime game on ESPN. And yeah, I mean, how can you not be fired up and fondly remember what happened to start the season? Definitely kicking off the David Cutcliffe era. I went back to 2017 as well, Josh, when Duke goes 7-6. They win their bowl game that season, but it was really the start of the year where Daniel Jones takes over. Like, this is the second year that he's really getting that playing time. And Duke starts the season with a big blowout win over North Carolina Central. And remember, like this season, Duke's first ACC game was against North Carolina. And that year, Duke went to Chapel Hill, knocked off the Tar Heels, led by Daniel Jones, beat them 27-17. And they're 4-0 right out of the gates, and they've knocked off North Carolina. So, again, that one not too far removed. But, man, Daniel Jones, he could get the job done against those Tar Heels, man. That was fun to watch.
With not many people blocking for him, which was incredible. So, hey, it continued into the NFL, hasn't it?
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. All right, man. Well, give folks one final promotion of Section 17. People need to get out to this game on Friday night, right? I know it's
sure.
It's week 2 of North Carolina high school action, but get to the game for Duke.
We'll help you. In fact, if you want to try to get free tickets, we have a stat prediction that we're promoting. If you enter the stat prediction contest, we're going to take on Wednesday of this week. So in 2 days, we're going to draw the winner of 4 free tickets to the Elon game. So we might be able to even get you there for free. There's free parking, free tickets. There's no excuses. If you're in town, you're not connected to a high school game going on, get your tail to Wallace Wade. See what all the hype's about.
That's perfect. I love it. All right, man. Hey, this was great. This was a whole lot of fun. Thanks for stopping by the show again, Josh. And we'll do it again soon. Game week is here, my friend. Be well.
Yes, sir. Go Duke.
All right. That's Josh Cox joining us here on today's show. Go support them at the Section 17 podcast. Please leave Locked On Blue Devils a 5-star rating and written review. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's going to do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.